Hi there! In this video, I will show you how to program the Manipulator robot designed by RoboCamp. If you want to complete this stage of the lesson with me, here's what you'll need. First and foremost, you will need the Manipulator robot itself, like the one standing right here in front of me. Don't forget, you will also need to have charged battery. Now, this model was assembled from Lego SPIKEPrime. If you're looking for building instructions, check out the other parts of this lesson. That's where I explain step by step how to complete it. You will also need Lego Spike coding app. It's available for free for download for most devices. I want you to download it, open it, start a new project with word blocks. Once you're inside, you should see something like here, something like in this corner you can see on my tablet. If you are a teacher, or if you're thinking about conducting programming or robotics lesson for kids, remember that all those materials, all those instructions are a resource that you can use too. More about this, more lessons and more robots, check out the links in the description to this video. Also, don't be afraid if you know little about programming. You see, every step of those instructions is actually explained, and those explanations will be available for you as the teacher. Now, if you are ready, let's start coding. Today's task for this manipulator will be to move an object from one stand to the other. Sounds simple, right? Well, it might, but actually this is a complex sequence of movements. And when we're dealing with programming robots, we need to break it down a bit. So first, let's maybe think about how this robot will see that there is an object standing right in front of it waiting to be grabbed. Well, we already know that we have sensor here, which can help us with that. But my robot is right now standing in this position. There is no way it will be able to detect an object standing on one of the stands. So, the first thing that we actually need to do is to make this robot rotate to be able to detect whether the object is here or there. And we already know that there is a motor which is responsible uniquely for that, right? So let's start by defining the speed of this motor. You see, we don't want the robot to spin too fast, otherwise it might not be able to detect this object. It will just pass right by it. So let's find the set speed to block. It's in the motors category. And let's add it to our script. Attach it right below the start block, right below when program starts. Okay, now you should see my blocks clearly. Now here we need to adjust parameters. First, let's change the speed from 75% to 20%. And let's not forget that we need to change the port too. If you have created your robot according to my instructions, then for you it's also the C motor. This is where the large motor is connected. All right, now that the speed is set, it's time to activate this motor. And for that, we will use start motor block. Here, once again, we will need to adjust parameters. Let's find this block, add it to the script right here. You can see that by default, we have the A port. Absolutely not. We need to change this to C. And we also have in this block this parameter defining the direction. It can be clockwise or counterclockwise. In this case, we need the clockwise or the right arrow. Now we know that this robot should keep on turning, keep on rotating until something happens, until it detects an object. And I have already mentioned that we will use the distance sensor for that. Now here we can we know where those stands are, so we can use those parameters to define how far an object should be for the manipulator to grab it. Okay, so now let's find the wait until block, the condition that we need to create. It is in the control category. Let's place it at the end of our pretty short script. And now, of course, what should we wait for? For the reading from the sensor. This is why we need to go to the sensors category and find this block with the distance sensor icon. Now, my sensor is connected to port F, so I don't need to change this. You can see it right here. However, check if yours is too. You may need to change it if needed. Now, let's adjust those parameters exactly as we can see them in the instruction. Let's make sure that the object is exactly at 7 centimeters. This is how far those stands are. Okay, so we have the condition, but what should happen next? Should the robot immediately start moving the gripper? How do you think? Well, first the robot should stop in front of this object. Because how else would it be able to grab it when it's moving? It just wouldn't work. So let's return to the motors category and find stop motor block. Okay, and let's not forget that here we need to change the port from A to C. All right, so far we have created a program which activates the large motor, so it makes the entire robot spin until a condition is met. A condition that an object is detected 7 centimeters far from the distance sensor. Then the motor and the entire robot stops. So now at this stage, it's actually a good idea to test this robot to see if all the commands work as we want them to, and also to see if we have selected the correct port for the motor. Here's how we should activate it. If you're make sure that your hub is connected to the tablet, okay? Either by Bluetooth or via cable. And then we just need to click or press the play button in the bottom right corner. Now let's see what happens with my robot. Okay, I think everything is working well. You could see that the robot was rotating, however, it stopped because it detected this object on one of the stands. Now, this means that I can keep on programming. Before we proceed, one important note. If your robot does not stop at all or stops on an angle, it may be that you need to adjust the distance parameter. So to check it, go to the dashboard of your hub, right here. Here you can see the current readings of all your motors and sensors. Make sure or test with this object. How far is it? What does this reading show? You can see that in my case, it shows exactly 7 centimeters. However, if your case shows something slightly else, you may need to adjust this reading. For example, if it shows 8, that's okay too. Just change this parameter from 7 to 8 in your script. Now that the robot is right in front of an object, it's time to begin the grasping sequence. The grasping sequence consists of 3 steps: lowering, closing, and lifting the gripper. Now we will begin programming this sequence by first lowering and lifting the gripper. So let's find a run 4 block from the motors category, because I hope you remember in this robot, one of the medium motors is responsible for tilting this construction, for lowering and lifting it back up. So let's go to the motors category and let's find run 4 block. This time we are not changing the motor. The medium motor we need is connected to port A, so I'll leave it as it is. The direction is clockwise. That's all right. Now, however, I don't want it in rotations. I actually need to change these parameters to degrees. 65 degrees to be exact. This way, the gripper will get as far down as it can. However, to make this testing more convenient, let's add another instruction that will return the gripper to its original position right after. Now, instead of looking for another run 4 block, let's duplicate the existing one. This way we won't need to change as many parameters. Now, to duplicate a block, you need to either right-click or press for a longer time without moving. Okay, it seems it's quite difficult for me to do right now, so I will just add another run 4 block. Okay. Here, of course, I need to change it once again to degrees. However, one more thing I need to change is actually the direction of motor rotation. Instead of clockwise, it should be counterclockwise. Now notice that these last 2 blocks are identical except for direction of motor rotation. This ensures that once the robot is lowered and then lifted back up, it will return to its original position. We are almost ready for the next stage of testing, except that we need to once again set the default speed for this motor. I know we've already done this, but notice that only for the C motor. We need to define it once again for the motor connected to port A. So let's return to the beginning of the script and let's find set speed block. Let's add it right below the start block right here. We need to change it once again to 20%. We don't want this robot to operate too fast. Otherwise, it might not function as we want it to. And I don't know if you've ever seen manipulators at work. Some of them are really fast, but those more precise ones are actually a bit slower, and we need precision for this manipulator. Okay, so now that we have determined the speed, it's time to test the program again. Now notice what should happen right now. First, this robot should keep on rotating to find an object. Once it does, it should stop, then it should lower and be lifted back again. It won't really grasp the object yet. We haven't defined this in the script yet. So let's see if that's actually what happens. Okay, this looked like a tiny nice bow to this object, and this works. Now test your robots to pause this video if you need to, and check if everything works as it does with mine. Correct your program if you need to too. Okay, and if everything works exactly as it should, let's proceed to the next part. Now let's make this robot grasp this object, and I hope you remember that for this task we need yet another medium motor. So as you can see, we need to select another port. Now in this case we will also use degrees to ensure precision of movement, okay, to make sure that those arms are not clasped too tightly or way beyond robot's capabilities. So let's find a run for block and add it, but not at the end of the script. After all, when the robot is supposed to grasp an object, it must be lowered, not back up. So it needs to be right here on this penultimate position in the script. First, let's change the port so that we know exactly which motor we want to program here. And we need to once again select degrees, 120 degrees to be exact. Okay, now the object is grasped and the robot should move it back up, right? We already have this programmed. But let's not forget that we still need to determine the speed of this third motor. We haven't defined it yet. So once again, we need to add one more set speed block at the beginning of the script. Maybe let me move this right here. Let's move it right below the start block. Change it port to E and change the speed to 20%. Now you see, we are actually placing those blocks that set the speed of the motors at the very beginning because this ensures that before any movement is happening, we already know, the hub already knows with what speed those motors should be activated. Now, if we were to leave them at the end of the script, well, it would be not meaningful at all, okay? Because first, the motors would be activated with default speed, which is around 75%. This is why we need them right after the start block. Okay, so now we have already programmed this grasping sequence, but we will also need to repeat this sequence when this object is lowered, right? So instead of adding 3 more blocks completely new, let's duplicate the existing ones. And by those 3, I mean, of course, the 3 last one, which stand for lowering, closing, and raising the gripper. Now, to duplicate 3 blocks at once, simply right-click or press longer this first block in this sequence. Then this window should appear. Select Duplicate. Okay, and you can see I have 3 new blocks, but they are not connected to script. So I need to move them at the end right here. And of course, I need to adjust one very important parameter. Now here, first the robot will be lowered, but then once again it will try to close the gripper. This is not what we want. It should actually open. So here we need to change the direction of motor rotation from clockwise to counterclockwise. Now with these blocks, it's time to commence another testing phase. Now here's what this robot should be able to do. First, find the object, grasp it, and put it back in the same place. Let's see if that's what happens. Okay, good. Now I want you to test your robots too. See if this tiny manipulator is performing as it should. Now we are close to our objective, but we are not done yet. The robot has picked up the object, but it hasn't really moved it to another stand. Let's fix this. Now, to rotate the entire robot, we need to activate one of the motors, the large motor to be exact. But let's think for a moment, where exactly should we place this block? Now, I hope you remember that the lifting and lowering sequence consists each of 3 blocks. So this block moving the robot should be exactly in between them. So on the 4th position from the end. Okay, so let's find a run for rotations block. Let's put it after 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is exactly where the first sequence, when the first sequence ends and the second one begins. Here we need to change the port, of course, from A to C. And this time we won't select degrees. Here we will opt for rotations, exactly 1.5 rotations. So 1.5. Now this should ensure that first the robot will lift up the object, then rotate to the other stand, and leave the object there. Now another block we should add here is something that is absolutely necessary for real manipulators. You see, we don't want this robot to, move just one object and be done with it. No, it should actually be able to operate all the time, move all the objects we place in front of it. And for this, we will need a programming loop. In this case, forever loop. Now, this loop ensures that all those commands inside will be repeated forever or until you manually stop the program. So let's find this loop in the control category. And let's think where we should place it. We don't actually need to define the speed of motors more than once, so there's no need to place them inside the loop. This is why we should place it right here. The first block, which is inside the loop, should be start motor. Now, once you place it here, the loop will make sure that all the commands that follow will be inside this loop too. Okay. Now, this looks like a really good program right now, except there is one more problem that we actually need to solve. When the robot puts down the object on another stand, the program returns to the beginning of the loop and the instructions inside. But at the beginning, the program looks for an object that is 7 centimeters away. Well, since the robot is in front of the object right now, the manipulator would just grab the object that it just put down. It makes no sense. So to prevent this, we will add an instructions to slightly turn the manipulator so that the object put on the stand is out of the range of the distance sensor. So from the motors tab, we need to select a run for block and put it as the last one inside the loop. Let's go to the motors category and place this block right here. Right at the end. Now, since we want to rotate the robot, we need to change the port parameter from A to C. And we also need to change rotations to degrees. 90 degrees will be enough. Now the program for the manipulator robot is complete. Remember what the task was? Simply move this object to another stand. Seems easy, but it is quite a complex sequence of movements for this robot. So now, let's take it for one final test and see if everything works as it should. The robot is ready and waiting. All I need to do right now is place this object on one of the stands and press play. Okay, great. The robot is performing as expected. That's great news. I'll stop it for now. As you can see, my manipulator works wonderfully. It managed to complete the task that we have put before it without any hiccups. Now I want you to test your robot. See if everything works smoothly. If not, check your program, compare it with mine, see if there are any differences. Adjust the parameters of the distance sensor if you need to. And if everything works great, good job. As you can see, this is quite an expanded program, but you've managed to complete it. That's great. Now is the time for you to play with this construction or experiment with it if you want to. You can add some new construction elements or perhaps program this robot slightly differently. Make it move different types of objects to different locations at different levels. Perhaps you can make this stand higher or lower, or maybe you can add some more stands over here. It's up to you. Now, thank you so much for completing this lesson with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you do, leave us a thumbs up. Thank you once again, and I hope you will have an amazing day. Bye!